I'll be very honest, I did start to miss my team, the work environment, the office, because there are good things about going into the office. Let's be very honest. I enjoyed so many of those things, and those are things we're going to explore more today. Hi beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. It feels like forever. It feels like I haven't been on YouTube in a long while. It's only been 2 weeks since my last video, but it feels like a lifetime. I miss you guys. How have you been? Hope you're all keeping well. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Carina darling. If you don't know me, I am the face behind this personal brand, and I love to talk about everything wellness, everything that we women and men need to navigate life stress-free, still being able to juggle all the other aspects of our lives without having to feel burnt out and feeling a bit under the weather. So I'm really excited to be here today sharing a very important topic, a topic that has been on everyone's mind, I'm sure everyone's lips since COVID happened last year, which is basically, would I be forced to go back into the office? And so I know a lot of us have enjoyed working from home. I don't know about you, I love working from home. I'm one of those people. I feel like I'm more organized when I'm at home, especially with the nature of my job. I don't necessarily have to be in the office. I can conduct meetings, I can work externally, and really when I work remotely, I create my own mini office and I can just focus and get things done. But having said that, I'll be very honest, I did start to miss my team, the work environment, the office, because there are good things about going into the office. Let's be very honest. I enjoyed so many of those things, and those are things we're going to explore more today on the topic of whether my employer can force me back in the office if I do not want to. And to be honest, sometimes we might be talking about employer. Can my employer force me back into the office? And sometimes it's not even the employer. We want to go back. I have met some people who have said to me, oh, I can't work from home. And actually for very legitimate reasons. Mental health is a very huge factor for someone to want to go back into the office, because I can imagine if you live on your own and you have nobody to talk to. There were lockdowns all across most of Europe, if not across the world. And a lot of them stayed for months. In the UK, we only just came out of lockdown not too long ago. So if someone has been by themselves for such a long period of time, it's only bound to affect our mental well-being. And very honestly, I'm going to let you in on this secret. I suffered from this. I think between January, February, March this year, being an introvert that I am, and this is the reason I'm sharing this, because I am an introvert, and as you would know, most introverts like to be on their own. And even being an introvert, I couldn't really hack it. I felt there was a deep side of me that wanted to go back into the office and just see people, because at the end of the day, we're social beings. We are relational beings. We need people around. So today we're going to focus more on whether our employers can force us back into the office. What is your take? What do you think? Do you think your employer can force you back into the office? Do you think you should go back to the office when the doors open? What is your take? I really want you to leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Even after the video, I still want to hear your comments on your views, because this is a very potent topic at the moment, and it's important that we all express our views and the reasoning behind it. So back to the topic of today, which is whether my employer can force me back into the office. Really, a lot of this depends on the terms in which you are employed. Are you self-employed? And if you are self-employed, then that means your terms are slightly different. So it depends on how are you meant to go into a particular place of work to do your job, or are you at client sites all through the day? So that's slightly different. So I'm not focusing on the self-employed people today. I'm focusing on those who have an employment contract, who work for an employer, and whether they can be forced back into the office. And on that, I think it's important to look at your employment contract. What does does this say? Because a lot of times we sign these employment contracts at the start of a job and we forget about them. But actually, those are the terms in which we do our job, in which we stay in the organization. And only when something goes south do we pull them out and say, oh yeah, what does this actually say? And what are the terms in which I signed up to? But it's important every now and again to refresh our memory on what we have signed as employees and also what we have signed to the employer. So what does an employment contract say? Does it state that there is a particular place of work? And so because that's what will govern whether you can choose not to go in and when you're called upon by your employer to come into the office. And so if it does specify a particular place of work, then you have that saying, okay, this is where we work and this is where we do business. And so this is where we're expected to have you. And most times those employment contracts, place of work, will specify the time in which you need to be in the office. And so it has specified the place of work. But a lot of times too, those employment contracts state one particular place of work, but also talks about flexibility as to the needs of the business, which is also open to interpretation. And in that sense, you can also look at it and say, okay, the needs of the business could be that there are various offices. So if I have a series of meetings in a particular office, it might be better use of my time to go to that office and work from there that particular day. But there's usually a specification in an employment contract saying this is where we expect you to be and this is the time in which we expect you to be there, which brings some form of order and organization. Otherwise, people would stagger into work at 12 and leave at 2 and productivity will be quite low. So we do understand that these terms are there to, of course, support the employer and also give us some sort of structure whilst we're working for the company and obviously getting paid. We don't expect to be working for free, so there's a reason why we are there to work. We're there to render our services and in turn get a salary at the end of the month. So in that case, if your employment contract states that we expect Carina, darling, to be at this particular office between Monday to Friday at 9 to 6 or 9 to 5:30, whatever the case may be. In that case, so my employment contract has specified it. Bearing in mind those employment contracts, especially for people who have not changed jobs, so you've been in the same job pre-COVID and now we're in a COVID era, if we may say. It's interesting how more than a year ago now, COVID came in to change all our lives. So yes, we're in this era now of COVID. No one could have preempted that there will be this coming up and no one could have seen it or foreseen it, so to incorporate it into our contract. And due to this virus infecting our world, we're forced to isolate. We're forced to, in a way, go into shelter. So everyone stay in your house. And there was a lockdown. There was a series of lockdowns and everyone had to stay in their houses and they had to work remotely. And thank God for technology. I feel that we have done quite well during a time of crisis, and this was beyond any form of crisis that at least I have seen in my lifetime. We have managed to navigate it in the way that we can possibly manage, bearing in mind all of the challenges and losses of lives and livelihood. It has been a very traumatic time in a lot of people's lives, and so because of that, people were forced to go and work from their homes. And again, we have to look at the reason why people are saying they do not wish to go into the office, or not necessarily that they do not wish to go into the office, that they're a bit apprehensive to go into the office. Like I mentioned earlier, some people have moved out because now their money can go further for them. They can afford a better lifestyle. They can afford to buy bigger homes with them and their families, and therefore living in the city is no longer vital, because the reason why people live around the city or live in the city is because of their work. So if people work in London, people work in central London, a lot of people work across central London. So it makes sense when you're looking for a place to live, you're looking at what is the commute time, how long is it going to take me to go into the office and back. You know, minimum I want to walk into the office within 5 minutes. I'm in the office. If I can afford it, if my job is in central London and I can afford to live 5 minutes from the office, I think I would do that. Some people too do not prefer to do that just because they want to separate their personal life from work. So some people, because of the nature of their job, because of how hectic it is, they choose to work a bit further away from work. So it's not a case of them being at work all the time, even when they're off work. And so it beats the question, what is my commute time and how long will it take me to get into the office? So a lot of times people are looking at between 30 minutes, 40 minutes and 50 minutes depending on where you find the property and where you're living. But now that we're all working remotely, then the question is, do I need to live closer to the city? Do I need to live so close to work if I can work remotely? And if the nature of my job means that I don't necessarily need to go into the office, I can work on the computer, I can do my meetings, I can do everything pretty much the way I run it, and sometimes even more efficiently. I was just exploring and saying that it depends on what your employment contract says, and sometimes it's actually about flexibility. So it could be a case where your employer is quite flexible. In my case, my employers are quite flexible with us, and they've said you're very welcome to keep working from home. We've seen that productivity level has really gone up in the last year and a half, so we're not pushing you all back into the office. Of course, we understand that there are people who also need to go into the office, so the office space is there for these people to come in, which I'll be one of them. I'll be going into the office some days. It's not going to be a fixed day in the week, or it might not even be every 2 weeks. It might even be every 2 weeks or every 1 month, but at least I know that there's that flexibility there. And so they can be quite flexible as well. So it's not set in stone, oh, because my employment contract says I have to be there, then I have to be. It's a conversation that you can have with your employer, and it can be negotiable as well. So go in with your reasoning behind why perhaps you may want to go into the office, or perhaps you may not want to go into the office. Another thing that I believe that has made a lot of people apprehensive about going into the office is the fact that of their safety, and it's not one to be taken lightly. You know, people are still catching COVID is still there even for those who have been vaccinated. So it's important that we protect ourselves, protect everyone else. We're responsible for everyone, so as much as we're responsible for ourselves. So it's important that these conversations are had with our employer, and for you to put in your case. It's a case of you stating your facts and saying, this is the reason why I think it might be beneficial for me to work from home, and this is why I don't feel that coming into the office perhaps might not necessarily affect productivity level for me because of these facts. So that's the way that you can go about it. You know, this video is not for you to go to your employer and say to them, no, you have to accept this, things have changed, I have been working. No, it's not about that. It's about having a good relationship and negotiating and discussing some of your concerns. And those concerns are obviously those of your employer as well, because whoever runs the business and heads the business are human beings like you, and so they can't be imposing these rules on you when it will also impact them negatively. As we also have to remember that there are some people who cannot work remotely. Construction workers are one of those people. Doctors and nurses, people who work in hospitals, care homes, very important key workers. Some of these people cannot work remotely, so it's important for them to be in the office or to be at their workplaces, wherever those workplaces are. So if you're one of those people, it's only understandable to recognize that your job cannot be done remotely, and therefore it's actually against your terms of employment to insist that you want to work remotely when the job cannot be done remotely. So it's important for us to bear these facts in mind. There could be some people who really want to go into the office and want to work in the office, but it just so happens that because of financial constraints, your employer has now decided to perhaps give up the lease for the premises, and now that place of work stated in your employment contract no longer exists, and you do not want to keep working from home. The question could be, what can I do? There is a possibility that in that situation there is a breach of employment contract because that place of work no longer exists and you would like to go into that place of work. But in everything we do, rather than pursuing a legal case, I would always support that you have a discussion with your employer and ensure that there's dialogue between the parties and that your needs are heard, and I'm sure the employers will come to an agreement that is suitable for both you and them. They do not want any legal claims against them, neither do you want to have a long long-winded legal matter in court. So it's important that both parties are happy and that there is an amicable arrangement in place. And I know most employers are understanding and tolerant of what's going on because it's also impacting their lives as well. And so I'm sure there can be an agreement in place. You may be asking yourself, say, but Carina, what if I'm not happy? What if the whole situation has changed? I don't have a place to work. They're expecting me to not work, perhaps enter into a new agreement, and maybe they're choosing a place that is way further than where I used to work. Do I have a case? You may potentially have a case, and my advice would be to perhaps speak to an employment lawyer if you can. If you can't, you can also speak to your Citizens Advice Bureau. If you're based in the UK, they can give you free legal advice as to guide you on what you can do. There's so many platforms out there that can support you in your journey or your employment matters. So I'm ending this video by just saying that there are options open to you, and I hope you can explore those options. And I hope that the next phase or the next season of your life does not bring you any stress and worry, because what we're here is to feed you with enough information that you need to run your business and be that badass professional in the city, stress-free, navigating your life in the process. So for now, I just want to say goodbye, guys, and have a wonderful week, and I wish you all the very best, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.